A visit to the Cinque Terre means not only getting to know the history of those who have toiled for centuries with a difficult terrain, but also tasting the fruits of this struggle in its particular local wine and products. A visit to these villages means learning about the culture of the stone walls and the vines, the fishermen and their nets, and the steep valleys and their paths. Against a surface area of 8 square kilometers, there is a coastal expanse of 18 kilometers, and this highlights the unmistakable tie between land and sea. The origins of Porto Venere were first documented in the 2nd century AD, when Porticus Veneris was mentioned in an ancient nautical itinerary as a naval station in the Roman Tyrrhenian for the routes to Wales and Spain. The Castrum Novum was built by the Antilami master builders and included the fortress houses on the seafront, the castle, the Church of San Lorenzo and the town walls. At the end of the 19th century, emergency restoration work began on Porto Venere's crumbling architecture, thanks to the efforts of the superintendent d'Andrade. Porto Venere is dominated by a beautiful church on top of a cliff overlooking the blue sea. San Pietro Church originated as an early Christian building made of black marble dating from the 6th century. In the 13th century it was extended with a Gothic style addition with bands of black and white stone. In the centre of Porto Venere stands the St. Lawrence Church. It was constructed by the famous Magistri Antilami and in the course of the centuries was modified many times due to Porto Venere's turbulent history. In the city is a medieval castle on top of a hill that is rather storybook-esque. Of early Genovese origin, the castle was built in 1161. The main body of the upper castle leads to the surrounding ramparts. Today, Porto Venere is loved for its simple but very suggestive landscapes and for the many colours of its house towers. A territory in which sea and land meet, forming a unique and evocative area. The vineyards and olive trees have contributed to a special landscape with dry laid stone walls and terraces, winding paths and enchanting beaches between cliffs and clear waters. All 5 villages, Riomaggiore, Manarola, Corniglia, Vernazza and Monterosso, face onto the sea. Monterosso al Mare is the largest village of the Cinque Terre and also the first to be documented. The beach in Monterosso alternates between sandy stretches and isolated rocks. The origin of Monterosso, as of Corniglia and Vernazza, go back to the age of the Roman Republic, when, after the defeat from Liguria in 180 AD, the lands passed to the families of the Roman persecutors along the coastal area. In the old medieval part of the village, there is the St. Francis Church that contains many pieces of art. Old Monterosso has remained practically intact. As it continually fell prey to sea battles, various defensive works were carried out. The main portal of the parish church, St. John the Baptist, is surmounted by a fresco portraying the baptism of Christ. The grand plan is like the plan of a basilica with 3 naves, one with divergent walls towards the choir in order to give more importance to the altar. Vernazza is the only village in the Cinque Terre to have preserved its sea hamlet atmosphere, owing to its safe, comfortable, natural port and to a maritime tradition that dates back to ancient times. Steep narrow alleys run down to the main street, which leads to a small square situated opposite the little port. The houses, in similar style to the fortress houses, are set amidst numerous alleys and arranged on various levels, which offer many new angles and glimpses. The parochial church, built on a cliff in 1318, is dedicated to Saint Margherita d'Antiochia. The ground level of the basilica is higher than the public square. On the opposite side of the piazza is a square-based Torre Campanaria bell tower, built in the 14th century and formerly used for lookout and defense purposes. Manarola, hamlet of Riomaggiore, is a town planning jewel, rich as it is in typical tower houses of Genovese style. Founded during the 12th century, the village probably derives its name from an antique Manarola, a large mill wheel present in the village. The most important monument of the hamlet is the Church of San Lorenzo. The facade is embellished with a rosette of 12 columns. The church is dedicated to the Nativity of the Virgin Mary. On the main altar we find a 14th century triptych with the Madonna with Child, St. Lawrence and St. Catherine. The Baroque inside has 3 barrow vault aisles. Behind Manarola, the typical terraces are to be admired with vines and stone walls. Going down to the sea, there are striking walks and extraordinarily beautiful viewpoints. The town of Riomaggiore has the typical features which reflect its history and traditions. The town stretches along a vertical axis where steep staircases are the only means of getting around the village. The most delightful part of Riomaggiore is surely its little harbour. Tucked between 2 spurs of rock, it seems almost toy-like in its scale, yet it has clearly been at the heart of the village life and the village's economy for centuries. First accounts of Riomaggiore date back to 1239, when the people from the Carpena district swore allegiance to the Genovese army, and when in 1251 the inhabitants of a group of small hamlets decided to join together and form Riomaggiore. The Via dell'Amore also represents the beginning of a great natural spectacle, the first step towards the discovery of the environmental, historical and cultural values of a land which is preserved in its primitive beauty. The typical houses have one or two floors in order to best use the space available. The houses, painted with typical traditional colours, follow the scheme of the tower houses. Like the other villages, Corniglia is located inside the natural park of the Cinque Terre, which was founded by a decree of the President of the Republic in 1999, and it is a protected marine area housing several very rare flora and fauna. Corniglia, the only village of the Cinque Terre not in physical contact with the sea, rises from the top of a rock promontory. Its low and wide houses are more similar to those of the hinterland than to the typical coastal houses, evidence that the traditional vocation of the village has always been more inclined towards the land than the sea. The 18th century oratory of the Disciplinati of St. Catherine is located in the heart of Corniglia, in the small Lago Toraggio square. To the back it opens out onto the wide sea. The Church of San Pietro, St. Peter, is in the Genovese Gothic style and was built around 1350. The facade of the church, embellished by a marble rosette, is enriched by many decorations, amongst which is a bas-relief which shows a deer, the emblem of the village. The Ligurian coast is a landscape of great scenic and cultural value.